Howdy y'all, it is Cody from the Keepers of Nerddom. It has been a little bit, haven't made a video like this in a while, but things have been kind of busy and random, so I was like, you know what, if I want to be able to make a video today, talk while I'm going. So, some new stuff. First off, Warhammer 40k. First off, finally got a Hexmark Destroyer coming. Getting ready to build that once it gets here in a day or two. Really excited about that. I've proxied to try one out and went, wow, these are nasty little buggers. Even my opponent was like, that's dumb. I'm like, yep, those are good. Ridiculously good. So, that was pretty impressive. Points data slate came out yesterday, the Field Munitorium Part 2. And, wow, that was a weird one. We didn't look through it all because obviously there's just some factions we don't care much about. Votan, I think, had no changes, which was really interesting. I was kind of hoping for my friend's sake that they would have something beneficial for them. Nothing. Necrons had one change to the Seraptic Heavy Construct, which I don't have one, and I hadn't even entertained it, but apparently they were pretty good for their price point, and now they're expensive enough not to necessarily warrant taking one. No, anyway, that happened. That was the only change for us, so I was like, yeah, it doesn't really impact me at all. That's fine. So, we have that. Let's see. Grey Knights actually went up in points for their purgation squads, which I was expecting them to come down slightly on point values for some of their pieces. And they didn't. Very, very bizarre. Weird stuff. Custodes. I was expecting them to go up a little bit, and I think even my friend that plays them was going, it's probably going to happen, unfortunately. And then, yeah, I had called him earlier that day when I saw that the stuff was out and read the Custodes stuff, and I was like, dude, have you seen how massively they changed? I'm so sorry. There was no changes whatsoever. He's like, I thought I just downloaded the same one over and over again. I was like, I know, I'm sorry, buddy, I shouldn't have, but it was funny. And that was bizarre. Like, there was no changes. And I'll be honest, Custodes are scary right now. They are scary. They are very scary. I'm glad for my friend. Like, I really am, but woo! Just with how much AP has been lost, their saves have just gone through the roof. It's crazy. And you can't be in melee with them unless, for Necrons, unless you're Lich Guard and you are powered up to the 9s, right? Yeah, that's bizarrely weird stuff. Let's see, the other big ones. Tau had like the Storm Surge go up in points, which I was wanting to 3D print that model anyway, just because I thought it was a really cool model. And now I still probably will, but it definitely went up in points, which just kind of made me sad a little bit. Just, okay, I hadn't even gotten to try it out yet, but apparently something about it was pretty good. I'm guessing it was because it was towering. So that was the thing that really got changed, was a lot of the towering units got their point costs adjusted up. So the Wraith Knight for the Eldari went up like a crazy amount. I think it was close to 100 points or something. It was some crazy number. And then that was a big deal. It was the Imperial Knights that were insane, because I think Chaos Knights went up, which was funny because apparently they weren't nearly as good as Imperial Knights, and Imperial Knights went up. And it was interesting reading comments after that fact, because you have something like that happen, right? Where points go up across the board. And I mean, literally, I think almost everything Imperial Knight-wise went up, especially, like, as if it was towering. I think if there were smaller models that weren't, they didn't, if memory serves. But, I mean, if it had towering as a keyword thing, skyrocket, through the roof. Through the roof. 75 minimum increase kind of deals. Like, it was crazy. 75 points. That was nutty. So it was interesting that towering was the issue, the rule itself, and they even acknowledged that the rule itself was the issue. And then how they fixed it was just went, we're gonna just make your points cost more so you don't have as many towering units on the field. Okay. Not the best fix necessarily. Not to say that points adjustments shouldn't happen, right? But especially when that's your only thing you're going to be doing primarily, because the only other thing that they actually changed was they actually did change the fate dice for the Eldari to a once per phase. You can do it. Which, yeah, that kind of should have been the case anyway. Just good grief. The fact that you can just change a die to whatever you want as far as the fate dice you've got sitting on your sidelines. Ridiculous. So once per phase, that's still really strong. But it's not going to just be, well, turn one, I'm literally dumping these 14 shots across the board into your group, and I'm going to make sure you're off the table with 3 or 4 of your units before we even really start. Because I can just fate dice to guarantee the hits and make sure that there's nothing left, so that way I don't really need the face dice in turns 3 through 5 anyway. Because there's not going to be much left of you, you know? So that helps. It balances out a little bit more, but I don't know. Kind of interesting. So, Warhammer 40K, I was expecting a few more changes on point values, but it seems like they really addressed only certain things. And what's funny is I'd seen a chart that my brother actually had sent me about it, just showing that the top factions were Eldari and then Imperial Knights, and I think right below them was Custodians as far as win rates in matches. But again, what's hard about those kind of pictures is this. You don't know, one, who they faced, right? They could have literally faced the worst opponents on planet Earth, right? They were bad. 2, you don't know who was piloting that faction to give them that percentage, right? They could be really bad or really good at piloting this faction, and so their win-loss rate can be impacted overall based on a few people just doing really terribly. But it's also what happens when you fight that first fight and you lose because they're an Imperial Knights, but then your next 3 matches or whatever, you absolutely decimate. See what I mean? Like it just changes things. I'm actually concerned that if Custodians were that high and didn't get adjusted at all before Eldari and Imperial Knights, and then they get adjusted, Custodians are going to come out of the gate swinging like an absolute train, man. It's going to be nasty. We'll see. But I'm a little nervous to see what happens now. Let's see what else. So I think that's all for the Warhammer 40K stuff. We learned a little bit about how Feel No Pain works better. We understand that more. It's just interesting how things that other players would take for granted because they've just played so long, there are things that aren't necessarily as clear in the process of that game until you really play several times and read it and check a Reddit or 2 and then realize, oh, we need to do it like this. Got it. So, yeah, just fun and interesting learning, not just 10th edition, but just extra how rules interact and how they function. Okay, so other weird news. The rumor mill has been swirling this past half a week, ever since Indiana Jones, that Lucasfilm has just been... I mean, there's rumors prior to that Lucasfilm might be sold off to a interested private buyer. Crazy, right? Sounds insane, but yet Disney's been losing money like crazy. And I will not ever forget because it's so funny whenever you know something and you've seen the pictures and you tell somebody about it and they go, no, there's no way that's not true, and they won't go look, they won't go research it, they won't go do anything, and they just go, this movie or this thing happened like this, and like in this case, this movie made $1 billion, so it's got to be good. It was Captain Marvel. It's crazy. And we're saying, have you seen the pictures of the front 2 rows in tons of movie theaters on opening weekend that are sold out, but there's nobody in these front 2 rows? And people are speculating, and eventually, I believe it came out that, yeah, Disney has been buying seats in movie theaters sometimes to make sure that a thing gets to a certain level. And it's like, first off, important note, right? Just because a movie makes a lot of money doesn't make it a good movie. I mean, let's look at the Star Wars movies. Did they make a lot of money? Yeah, but they also went down progressively. So the last one of those 3 trilogy movies was doing worse than the other 2. So they made money, but it still didn't do what it was hoping. Doesn't make it a good movie. Actually, I think the worst of those 3, really, when you pause to really process it all, is actually the first one. Even though number 2, jacked up Luke Skywalker, and number 3 of that new Star Wars trilogy just was a big run from here to there to there to there. One of my biggest pet peeves is when you make an old movie and just copy paste it into your movie. And what's funny is this, and I say this, right? This is the irony. I've watched Avatar and really liked it, but my understanding is that it's Dances with Wolves or something like that. It's like a copy of it in some way, and I haven't ever seen it, and so I don't have in mind here's the original to compare it to. And I'm afraid if I ever were to watch that, I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is straight up the same movie, and would never be able to watch Avatar again. So I would actually be upset with Avatar. And in a way I am, even though I haven't even seen Dances with Wolves, but I'm also taking people's words, so I need to go see it myself, right? To compare. How similar is it? Is it just like copy and paste of Native American Indians versus whoever's the group that's trying to take over, probably America, or if it's early, I don't know. I need to go do some research on that one, but it would be literally, what is Avatar but a sci-fi version of that? They have resources and land and area we want, we're taking it. Yeah, anyway, I don't know. I think The Force Awakens is straight up a carbon copy of A New Hope, and it's terrible. Like, it's so frustrating. And the only things that they did different were like gender swapped roles kind of deals. That's it. Whatever. But it's just a carbon copy, and it's the point where they even go, it's the Death Star, and then the guy goes, no, it's bigger, and then they just zoom out, and you're like, oh my gosh, and it's like, but it's the Death Star, it's what it's doing. It's just, let's make the Death Star but scarier, which is what we already had in episode 6, was the Death Star but scarier, because it was bigger and more powerful and faster. Okay. So, anyway, yeah, going all back to Disney, like, it's lost money. There's rumor mills surrounding that there have been meetings and conversations about jobs and other things, maybe even Kathleen Kennedy. Finally. Okay, side note. At what point, what does it take, right? This is the perfect example of how messed up our society, our culture is. That fans for a long time, but that's just it. Some fans have been like, oh no, the new Star Wars is so good. And you're like, okay, if you stop to think about this for more than 5 seconds, we are in such a terrible spot that could have been so much better. You know, even if Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni had been able to just run with it and not had to get sucked into this woke weirdness, it would have been great. We would have had such a great moment of Star Wars stuff. And instead, we've gotten weird stuff with Willow, with Star Wars, with Indiana Jones, with... Gosh, I can't even think of other Lucasfilm stuff off the top of my head right now. So I want to start just naming Disney other stuff, because Disney as a whole has been struggling. So Marvel's doing that bad, and Disney, all they're doing with their own stuff is, let's remake a cartoon we may have had 40 years ago. That's their ideas right now. And even Pixar's struggling. How long does it take before somebody goes, Kathleen Kennedy, you need to go? I don't get it. Like, it's silly, but it also speaks to just how politics work, right? It's, if you know the right people, you can stay in a job way longer than you ever have any business. And she has literally just run stuff into the ground, and that's really sad. It's really sad, because Star Wars should have been in a much better place than where it's at now. And if you want any proof of that, just think about this for a second. What was the last Star Wars movie we've had? Star Wars movie, right? What was it? Was it? No, it couldn't have been Solo. No way. Has it been that long? Oh my. Right? Like, think about that. We have not had a return to the big screen. We've had tons and tons of announcements. And this is actually a really funny thing. Like, the more announcements that Kathleen Kennedy would make and try to defend that, no, those are still happening. They're not canceled. Baloney. It's just evidence of the weird game that is played in politics. This is politics, even though it's not directly related to government politics. It's politics on the scale of wokeness, on the scale of agenda, on the scale of how things are going to be run. And at some point, somebody needs to go, this is an abysmal failure. And finally, Indiana Jones, which is apparently one of the most expensive movies ever made, this Dial of Destiny, it's not doing well. I want to see it at some point. I don't want to go to the theaters to see it because I don't want to waste my money. But man, it needs... I want to see it just so I can understand to give you a better critique, but I'm going to have to wait because I am not paying money to see it. Because everything that it sounds like, and even just the commercials, it feels like Phoebe Waller-Bridge is just going to tear him down. And even the initial trailers were rough, that she was just going to berate him. To the point where they changed some of the trailers where the capitalism only trailer thing, where it's like, that's capitalism because I stole it, and then you stole it, he stole it, and then I stole it. That's capitalism. Like, what? Okay, that's not logical thinking at all. Anyway, yeah, Kathleen Kennedy, she needs to go. She's needed to go for a long time. She's been ruining so much, and I mean, unfortunately, it's the same over in Marvel. Kevin Feige should have gone. He's not been doing what he needs to. It's heartbreaking when things that you care about and you love. Marvel Phase 1 and Phase 2 was so good, right? Phase 3? Was it good? I'm trying to remember Phase 3. I guess that would have been Infinity War and stuff. So yeah, good. Just weird. Just really, really weird stuff. I guess my last big news, and I end on a high note, I finally got to see in theaters Into the Spider-Verse. Is that the name of the new Spider-Man animated film? And holy cow. I'm not going to go into any spoilers. I will say I think there's some logic maybe that might have needed to be explained a little better in the film, but overall, like, that film was amazing. The visuals are so artistic. It's fascinating, right? It's not the visuals ever. Like, even the first film that I would have chosen if I was picking it. And yet they work so well because it just gives you this beautiful art that you're looking at, that it's not just a movie, it's a piece of art. It's fascinating and beautiful because sometimes they want to make sure you are focusing in on the facial features of a character to the point where the backdrop, there's not much of a wall there. It's just some almost like paint strokes on a canvas, and that's about what you're seeing of the wall behind them because they want you focused in on the person in front of you. Fantastic, right? This is good stuff. Storyline, wow, fun. You know, I was like, man, can they really top that original one? And yeah, I think in a lot of ways they did. They actually gave us more and interesting and fascinating detail and story and concept and tough stuff. Man, it was good. So I'd say if you haven't seen it, go support that movie because it's a movie that's actually just trying to tell you a good story. And what a wonderful story. And the characters are vibrant and just more heartwarming and touching than sometimes the live action films lately. They did a great job of giving you, here's the hurt and the pain that makes Spider-Man, which is really interesting thing to explore the concept of that in a way. I like that. It's a tough thing though too, because it's like, is this really a kids movie? And I don't know that the answer is yes. It reminds me of older cartoons that they used to come out with, where it's, or sometimes even still Pixar films, where they would come out and it would have a very serious story. It reminds me of Big Hero 6, right? There's loss, there's hurt, there's pain. It's not just everything is good. Everything is fine. No! They want to give you a good story that's going to be for kids as much as it is for adults that they can go, yeah, I got that. I relate to that. So yeah, fantastic film. You know, good stuff. And it gives me hope that, yeah, some good movies can still be made. Movies that still have plot and design. It's good stuff. Let me know down in the comments below any thoughts on this stuff for news. I've been Cody from The Keeper's Nerddom. Take care. Bye, y'all.